Hi, this is Michael Wan, News Director for Radio Korea.
Hi, I'm the Contest Director for Radio Korea. My name is Young Kim, and thank you for joining us today. It's going to be a special English edition.
Yes, and today we have our special guest, John Lee. John Lee.
That's right, Los Angeles 12th District City Council member. John Lee, thank you for joining us here. We had a chance to meet you at a wonderful art exhibition the other day.
It's nice to be here. I appreciate you guys having me on.
And you're the only Korean American councilman in the city of Los Angeles, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm the only Korean American. There is a South Asian council member there, Nithya Raman. But yes.
And the only councilman to get re-elected, right? John always
Korean councilman.
Councilman Lee always tells me to point that out.
Wait, hold on. I don't know if I'm the one who tells you to do that,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, re-elected. So that means, most of the other councilmen, Korean American councilmen over here, they got one chance and then got fired. But
that was a big deal, actually, because it was a very
right?
close race against, I forgot her name, in this 12th district,
Oh, yeah. So with Lorraine, my first
Lorraine
time
Lundquist,
around.
right?
But I think that this time around, so I have a re-election in March
Yeah.
2024. I think this time around, you have outside groups like businesses, people who support law enforcement. They now know who I am. I have a record that I can speak to. But more importantly, I think the constituents of CD12 know who I am. They know, most importantly, that I care about the district. I'm not someone who just moved into the district. I've lived there for 45 years, since 1978. I'm somebody, who's honored and proud to represent the area and the people who raised me. So I think they see that. And that's why, as of April, there are no real candidates running against me.
Lorraine's not running again.
No, I mean, at this time for any of the other elections, there were, multiple candidates during the last election cycle by this time. I'm not saying that there won't be, but I think this election is going to be much, much different.
Well, I mean, so you're incumbent and you've been seated in the system for a while. So, I mean, there isn't really anyone who's qualified enough to come against you right now.
Well, I think that, I wish I could take all the credit, but, my staff, I have an incredible staff who understand the needs of the district, I think represent the district very well. And they've just been doing such an incredible job. We've all been, they understand what I want from them and the type of office I want to run, whether it be issue-wise or just even the constituent complaints. When there's a pothole, when there's something that's, a quality of life issue, they know, and they know that our district, we set a standard that gets taken care of. Right.
But just since you mentioned potholes, I mean, there's like a big pothole thing because of all the rains that we've had, and we've had continued like a record amount of rain in Southern California, I think this year. So apparently there's a plan underway to fix these hot potholes and stuff. What happens if I'm driving it or something, and then I'm just driving and I hit a pothole and it damages my wheel? Is the city responsible? I'm just kind of curious.
Well,
it's like a gray area. I'm curious.
Yeah,
can I sue you?
You're putting him on the defense already, right?
Yeah, it is gray area. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately, we've been in a major drought, and so to get this much rainfall, it's really doing a number on us in different areas. Also exposing the different areas, because as soon as there's a crack in any of our streets, that's how a pothole forms. The water gets underneath, it, takes the integrity of the dirt away, and then a hole appears. And so it's obviously that has been an issue for us, and making sure that we're on top of things. But it's I had now 2 pretty big sinkholes
in your
my
district.
Yeah,
right?
They're actually trying to sinkholes. That's
the
thing. Wow.
Yeah, so that was fortunately no one has been hurt, but it's something that because of just, you guys know, do you remember a rainy season like this?
No, I've never seen
this
anything
long?
like it.
No.
Yeah, so it's been tough, but
I was legit thinking that it was the end of the world. So I was like, okay, this is like, when's the big one going to come?
But we needed it, right? Because of the drought.
We desperately
needed
needed it. Our reservoirs were less than 50%.
I know.
We were looking at different ways of trying to get people to, how to cut back on water. Now, we desperately needed it. And also, it's not just what we collected here and the recharging of the groundwater, but it's also when you see the snow-capped mountains.
Yeah.
I mean, that's water that we're just going to continuously get. So
yeah, but there's always a good and a bad, and the bad is there has been people who have been damaged severely because of the this constant pouring of rain. I mean, we've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I know that we say that anytime there's big, like, do you guys like, but it really, I don't remember in any recent history where it rained this continuously.
And it was like at times we had some really thick drops too. Usually in LA you just get the little misty little.
I know it was like
just wipe it off your face. But this is like it was raining sideways. It was windy.
Yeah,
tornadoes appeared in the middle of Montebello. It's like what is going on here?
We had I don't know if it's considered ice rain or hail. Throughout my district, it was snowing in parts of East Valley. I mean, it's been a crazy little winter. For us.
I remember one time where it snowed. I was in junior high. I was attending junior high in Northridge, and it snowed like
I know exactly.
Half an inch, I think, right?
Yep.
All the schools were closed. Right? It was like all the schools were closed.
I was in high school.
Really?
At the time. I think it was 1987.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
I was in junior high. Yeah, it was my senior year. I don't know if attendance was really that big that day at school.
Yeah, no, it was
because everyone was just.
I think everyone stayed home from work too.
Yeah, there was just snow on the ground.
It's like we moved to Seattle, right?
Yeah, it was just very cool to see.
Yeah.
I've never seen it before.
And it was like this much snow.
Yeah.
And I think Los Angeles infrastructure is kind of weak, right? That's what we found out. The traffic lights doesn't work well.
Well, I think with our infrastructure, I think that. We are going to have to make some really hard decisions and tough decisions. Unfortunately, infrastructure is not the
priority,
the shiny penny, right? To say like, oh, well, I put so much pipe in the ground. That's not exactly something sexy, right. Yeah. But it's my job as the chairman, the new, my new chairmanship of Public Works Committee is that we really have to take a hard look at the infrastructure of the city of Los Angeles because it is aging, and we got to make sure that it lasts another 50 years.
When I first immigrated to I first immigrated to Alaska, but when I first came to LA, LA was much cleaner and much like better and more advanced. All the infrastructure was really, really top notch compared to a place like Korea or something, right? And I lived in Korea for about 20 years. And in 2017, when I came back, it just didn't feel the same. Everything felt so much older. The roads were just getting really torn up, I think. I could almost say that Korea is like really good at fixing their infrastructures. They have 4 seasons and they're always on top. Sure. But it's also a country that is really on concerned about what others think and to provide everything that's possible, especially when it's in the eyes of foreigners and stuff. Can Los Angeles' infrastructure, can it actually be like fixed like without tearing the whole place up? I mean, when you look at it,
I think in the last decade or so, you've seen our improvement actually in our. There's a scoring system for our city streets. We're really utilizing new innovations to how to tackle issues like street repaving and making sure that we're extending the life cycle of it. So I think there's definite ways, but there are different things that we need to act now, whether it be infrastructure, whether it be the number of police officers on our streets.
That's also
we can't just sit around and wait for someone else to do it. This council has to act, and we have to act together now to make sure that we don't get to a place where there's no return from.
What do you think are some of the biggest obstacles standing in the way of acting now and moving forward?
Well, when it comes to like law enforcement, that is something I think we should be at a number closer to like 13,000 officers. But right now, I'm not concerned about 13,000 officers. I just want to hire to attrition. I want to hire to the number of people that we keep losing, from retirement, or people who no longer feel like city leadership is behind them. and have their
So,
backs.
Councilman, I just talked with Councilman McCosker weeks ago, and he talked about that the number of LAPD has dropped from 9,700 to 9,300. Is that true?
No, that is not true.
It's not?
Because I believe the number is now closer to 9,100.
Wow.
See, it's lower.
Yeah, and that's in just a few
Wow.
weeks. I think I heard recently we're in 99,100 something, and that is something that if we don't, it's not just enough to like get full classes and the same amount that we've used to, because we are losing faster than we are hiring. We have to look in a number of different things, whether it's like the hiring process, how do we speed that up? Everyone is hiring. Every law enforcement agency is hiring right now. We have to be more competitive. Everybody wants to be an LAPD officer. LAPD is the top of law enforcement. But when they're sitting around waiting to hear if they're going to, have the opportunity to be an LAPD officer, well, the sheriffs offer them a position. Beverly Hills Police offers their position, and they jump on that. And so that's something that we need to address a lot of different things to make sure that not only are we hiring to attrition, we have some big events coming up. We have the Olympics. In 1984,
right.
we used that opportunity to grow our police department. I think that we're going to, hopefully have that opportunity this time as well.
Go ahead. I'm hearing that people don't want to be police officers anymore.
I was going to mention exactly that. So,
is that what's going on right now?
So let me just tell you this. I have a very good friend. I have several good friends. One of them have been on the force for a good 22 years. I think he's 3 years to retirement. He's at the academy training kids. And, what I hear from him is that, especially LAPD, the morale is low. Mm-hmm. That they don't want to go out on the streets and they feel like they're just unappreciated, that people hate them. I've heard this a lot, and that they just don't want to be on the force anymore. I've heard this several times, and I think in an era where I think especially the media, I think, is really hitting down on police forces. Of course, there's been a lot of,
police brutality
mm-hmm. and misjudgments by certain officers and even the chiefs themselves. But the fact of the matter is, how do you fix the situation like this when the media is just constantly trying to crack down on, saying all these types of things and kind of turning the tide against the officers?
Look, it's always important to understand that as LAPD, we always need to be striving to be better. And I think if you take a look at the things that they were asking for in the unfortunate incident with George Floyd incident, and when they were talking about the bills that were coming out of Congress, you could have just taken the LAPD manual and handed to them all the different things that they were asking for. We already do. And that's what frustrated me at the time when they were trying to talk about defunding the police, is I'm like, okay, look, can we just acknowledge that LAPD is doing all the different things that they're asking us to do? Like, where's the chokeholds, de-escalation, things like that are part of our training process. There is, bar none, there's no better training than what you get as an LAPD officer. But it's unfortunate because, a certain light is being placed on all of them. And, they can scream and yell, but I truly believe, and I think you talk to officers, no one hates a bad officer more than a good police officer.
I understand.
And there are so many incredible men and women on the LAPD force. This is a force that when I grew up, there was no one that looked like me on this. Today, LAPD mirrors almost to the exact percent of the makeup of the population of the city of Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And I think that they've taken so many incredible steps, obviously, over the last couple of decades since Chief Gates and the LA riots. But my frustration was that, hey, are we going to point some of this out? Because right now you're just dumping on them. Uh-huh. And that's why I was one of 2 votes against
I remember that.
Any type of defunding for the LAPD. Mm-hmm. I've always believed that to have good communities, we need to have safe communities. And LAPD obviously plays a big part of that. I'm very fortunate in my district. I think that we are a district that supports law enforcement, understands how hard of a job it is. But I think that, we always need to be looking at how we can be better. When you talk about the morale issues, that's real. There are a lot of people who don't feel like they are being supported by the leadership in the city of Los Angeles. That has to change. But I can't say it's going to be an easy process. We have, some people that on the city council that, I don't mind someone coming on and taking a hard look at the training, looking at how we police. Maybe if we can, in their words, reimagine how we do policing. But they can't come in just simply voting no on anything that's law enforcement. Mm-hmm. That's not going to help. When catalytic converters. 5 years ago, we had something ballpark like 800 stolen. Well, last year we had like 8,000 stolen.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
And because of that, it's not just the $1,000 or $2,000 fine, not fine, replacement cost for the piece. Because it's such an epidemic throughout this country, it takes some people 3 months to get it replaced. Yeah. If you're in a Prius,
so you can't ride it. You can't drive it.
So, think about the families that hurts. So when we put in legislation to give LAPD a new tool to combat the catalytic converter theft, because right now when they pull someone over and they see 3 catalytic converters in someone's possession, there's no way to trace them. All we're asking is that someone provide proof they work in a garage, that they have some bill of sale, when they have to, report, they report for their speeding ticket or something. It's just, it's almost like a fix it. You can just show the proof. That barely passed, and I don't know why. That is affecting people here in the city of Los Angeles. And unfortunately, it's something that, really could be the difference between someone surviving or not, because it may be their only family car. Mm-hmm. So
Councilman, I'm very worried about this because of the mom mentality. You were you and it was Councilman Joe Buscaino who was against defund the police movement, right? So what I felt was throughout that process, the whole George Floyd thing was in the city council, people would just follow that mom mentality. I'm talking about elected officials, city council members would just follow that narrative. That scared me, we elect these people so that they have better common sense, they have common sense and knowledge that if you go down this pathway, that crime will rise. And it's just math, right? It's simple math. But what did you have personal talks with every single council member then, about this situation?
Yeah,
I just don't understand why this could just take over like this.
Yeah, this is a couple of years ago, and I can't speak to why they voted certain ways, but absolutely, I think that Councilman Buscaino and I had conversations with different members of, hey, let's not just, what happened was a tragedy, and what happened should be another something that we make sure that does not happen in LAPD. But to simply just an arbitrary figure like, oh, well, we're going to cut $100 million and, we're going to, spread it around like that.
With 150 million, right?
Yeah, something. I believe it's 150 million. That's not, you can't just make up a number. That's, you have to, we're the government. You can't be lazy governing. You have to actually figure out what I don't even know how they came up with that number. So to be able to just throw that out was something that I think Councilman Buscaino and I had a huge problem with.
Well, just to add on to that, whatever that number was, it affected many things. For example, I think 2 years ago, I told you that my house was burglarized.
It was a victim of
Well,
it, right?
It turns out that the police department in my area, they had to shut down a unit that actually specializes in burglaries. So they had to minimize it or downsize it or something, so they didn't have enough staff to look into it. So these things are affecting people. But, I really think that it was media was a big part of driving this. I mean, because when you I thought it was strange. I saw the protests that were going on in downtown LA, and news media, they're reporting it. They're this is a peaceful. I see people in the back throwing things, breaking things, crashing things.
No,
it was not
peaceful.
I witnessed cars being burned. I was there with my family, watching this stuff, And I don't understand how the media was reporting it in one way, saying that everything was so peaceful and this, and I was so confused at what was happening. I thought was it just me? And I talked to people at my workplace, and they're telling me, yeah, it was peaceful, this and that. I'm like, wait, you didn't see this? What? I thought I was nuts.
Yeah, I think the mainstream media is too powerful.
Am I alone in thinking
narrative.
this?
I mean,
think their narrative is pro.
Now I think you understand my frustration when there were a lot of peaceful gatherings, marches in my district, no issues. But then we have to also call when things turn in, from a peaceful organization, organizing to what, for lack of a better term, just rioting, and looting and, just destruction of property. That can't be something that's okay. And so just like you, when I'm watching that, was very frustrating when that was being reported, because I knew what was happening. I knew the rocks and the things that were being thrown at officers across the city of Los Angeles.
I thought LAPD actually really held themselves up very well, taking a lot of abuse, as well as, there were some instances of mishandling as well too. Let's not forget that.
Look, you can never this. My support of LAPD is not just a blank support. If there's something wrong, if something bad happens, I'm going to call that out. Mm-hmm. But we can't just, just use this broad sort of stroke and just say, okay, they're all bad. They're all this. Look, there are bad ones, and we need to root them out. But we always have to remember that there are good men and women who put on that uniform, put on that badge every single day to protect our communities and our city. And when they're not getting the support out there, back to what you were saying earlier, it's hard. It's hard for them to understand, okay, well then why would I want to go into that profession?
Yeah, I mean,
and so it's something that we're having a lot of talks about how we make sure that as a city, we do have to understand the job of being an officer is not an easy one.
It's definitely difficult, I think.
So, Councilman, even though you and Buscaino voted against it, it still passed, right? $150 million. It got defunded, right? Yeah. So we want to know the current state of the police force budget. Did they because there have been reports that Mayor Garcetti, the former Mayor Garcetti, that he refunded the police force. But what's happening right now at this point?
During the budget process, because there was money put back in, as far as, like every year in the budget process, looking at raises, what was agreed to at the bargaining table. But right now, the biggest problem is that we're just not hiring fast enough. And
it also takes a while too.
It does. And look, nobody wants to, make it easier in the sense of lowering our standards. Okay, LAPD is considered one of the top law enforcement agencies because they do have a level of standard of the candidates that they accept. But there are things that I think we can do. But you know what? At the end of the day, it all starts with people like me, my colleagues, the mayor, other elected officials, to start to really look at the job that they're doing, and to just identify when there's a problem, but also support when there are successes. And we need to be doing a better job at that.
Do you think LAPD also, we can all do a better job in any sector, I think. But would you say that arresting criminals or arresting people who are suspected of committing crimes and actually jailing people because I've noticed that everyone gets released because, we have these new laws over here. I don't know what it is, if it's new or not, but, everyone just seems to get released if the crime doesn't involve someone getting hurt or a certain amount of money.
If the theft is under 950, yeah.
Yeah, it's very frustrating because I feel that there are no repercussions for people's actions. When I walk into a CVS or a Rite Aid or something, it's common that a manager will recognize me and then say, Councilman, can you please just come over here? Look, my entire section of deodorants just
Wow.
swept into a bag and just the person walked out. And it's classified then as a shoplifting. So it's not like a burglary or a theft or anything, because there's no confrontation. It's just categorized as a shoplifting.
Yeah.
And you can steal, right, because of certain propositions. What is it, $950 per incident?
$950, yeah.
Not per day. And so a lot of officers are very, very frustrated because when they report these crimes, they're saying, Councilmember, they're walking out the
they just walk out.
They're walking out of Devonshire Station while I'm still doing paperwork. Like, how is that okay? I'm going to, focus on, I'm going to focus on things that I think will actually make a difference. And so I understand that frustration. But we've had frustrating issues. We had a string of burglaries throughout Porter Ranch, and we identified, our detectives, found who was doing them, went to their place of residence, found the stolen goods, found, I believe, unregistered firearms there. The person was on parole, and they were out the next day. And before their case came in, they were rearrested again. That's.
Wait, isn't that a parole violation?
It used to be. It sure used to
but
be.
not anymore. Not anymore. Do you think we have
Doesn't that give the potential for this person to commit an even bigger crime, like hurting someone?
Without a doubt. Of course, it's going to happen. Do you think we have a DA problem right now? The DAs are just
I think there's
bought
a DA
and paid
problem.
for.
I'll say it.
When
George Gascon
when the DA won't prosecute, certain crimes, when the DA, won't hold certain people, like that is a problem. And that's, that is something that, again, leads to the frustration of what we're talking about of being a police officer, that when they hear stories that, we're catching the bad guys and they're just being released.
So this is actually, this makes it even worse. I mean, I forgot what you call it, but this just is a cycle. It's a cycle that keeps on getting worse and worse. This emboldens criminals even more, where now we have like people just breaking into a whole a train load of like packages and just free for all, just ambushing trains in the middle, and then now it's just like nuts. You're going to like an anarchy status over here. I don't understand what's going on. So the rule of law is gone.
I think it's crazy town. I really think it's kind of like that because of these situations. And people see it on TV all
when
all
court
the time.
cases come down on us and say that we have to do certain things a certain way or we have to follow certain laws. It's very frustrating when we don't feel that it's in the best interests of, the average citizen who is living their life.
Law-abiding citizen.
Law-abiding, paying their taxes. And, it's just scales seem really tipped now. And we need to make it more balanced. I mean, should we be looking at, justice reform? Absolutely. We should be looking for different ways to, rehabilitate people, that are incarcerated. But we can't just simply just turn a blind eye that, we're just not going to prosecute those.
But these
anymore.
DAs, I think the problem is, okay, I think this name, I don't know whether they mention this name a lot. George Soros comes to mind because I think he spends a lot of money in these county district attorney races, and he's winning I think he put in 75 of them. And George Gascon is one of them. Chesa Boudin used to be in San Francisco County, and he was also known as a crazy DA there, but they recalled him. But we failed in recalling George Gascon. So I was wondering whether his name pops up or it's just completely just a national political figure.
And of course, his name will pop up. But I mean, for me right now, the focus is in March election, this city will have the opportunity to elect a new district attorney. And the one that we have now, it's very hard to really understand what his goals are sometimes, because I just don't think, do you feel safer?
No?
Yeah.
I mean, I wish that people like you can have a one-on-one talk with George Gascon and make some sense to him, because I just don't understand. I don't understand any of his policies, any of it.
Yeah, it's.
I'm curious. Would this have anything to do with jails? I understand that jails and prisons have become privatized.
Oh yeah, that's also. I think jails being overpopulated. Populated.
Yeah,
that's why they're trying to relieve
along those
some.
lines,
But
so
it's.
Forgive my ignorance.
Yeah, no. We have to. We have to definitely look. We incarcerate more people in the United States than any other country, and we have to take a look at different issues of why is that the reason. But we cannot at the same time just close our eyes and say, well, because this is bad, then we're not going to enforce certain things anymore, and that is very, very frustrating.
Do you see people leaving city of Los Angeles?
Unfortunately, I do.
Crime went up.
Unfortunately, every time you look at social media or something, there's someone who's a longtime resident in my district saying their goodbyes, and that's
leaving.
That's tough. That's tough to I think we see the numbers of California. We went down for the first time. That's not necessarily a good sign. We used to be able to rely on, hey, it's Los Angeles, great weather. Absolutely, still true. But I think this pandemic taught us that you don't necessarily need to live in this area. You can, communicate, through video conferencing with your clients and with your different partner companies. It used to be like aerospace industry all had to be close by because they were all sort of, using, working with each other on certain things. I don't know if that's the case anymore. And that scares me because, we have to understand that companies bring jobs, and jobs provide for families being able to be, live in the city. And if we don't start looking at how we treat them as well, the city right now is looking at, I think our regional housing numbers are, we have to build like 450,000 units in the next 8 years from the state. Well, if we keep putting more fees and more taxes on developments that are trying to build responsibly, who would want to build here in the city of Los Angeles when you have a council that says you don't have to pay rent, or it doesn't pencil out? We need more affordable housing, and you know what? I am definitely one of the people that needs to provide more affordable housing in their district. But I just can't get anyone to do it. And that's a problem. And the city has to look at that, because we can't just say we need more affordable housing. Yes, we do. What are we doing about it? We're not doing anything about it. So,
well, you mentioned like the taxes and stuff. I think if we keep going this way, California will also lose a lot of small business owners who are going to pay extra in taxes, payroll taxes, and as well as wages. I think that's also an issue here. But we're right now here with Los Angeles 12th District Councilman, Mr.
John Lee.
That's right, John Lee. I just got confused for a second because
what's your Korean name?
I almost said John Kim.
Yeah,
because my name's
right?
John Kim.
What's your Korean name?
장성. 이장성.
이장?
이장성. I don't know if I'm
이장성.
Ijangsong.
Yeah.
All right. Well, John Lee is joining us. We'll be back with more on 문화충격.
제작팀장님이 해맑게 테이크아웃 커피를 배달하고 계시네요. 아주 바람직한 팀장님. 다들 고마움은 뒤로 한 채 잽싸게 가져가네요. 일회용 빨대가 머릿수보다 많아요. 커피의 유혹에도 혼자 마시지 않는 저 직원은 울고 있네요. 관심 있는 척 팀원들이 모여듭니다. 뭘 보고 있니? 이런 우리가 버린 플라스틱을 먹다 죽은 불쌍한 고래가 화면에 보여요. 다음 날 여전히 커피에 돈을 낭비한 팀장. 다른 분들은 커피를 안 마시는 건가요? 아하, 다들 개인 컵을 챙겨 오셨네요. 머쓱한 팀장도 텀블러를 챙겨왔네요. 참 잘했어요.
매년 800만 톤의 쓰레기가 버려지고 바다에 쌓여가고 있습니다. 83억 톤의 플라스틱 생산량 중 9%만이 재활용되고 있습니다. 매일 마시는 커피, 나만의 컵과 텀블러에 담아 마시는 것은 어떨까요?
And welcome back to 문화충격, or Culture Shock. We're with John Lee, and City Councilman of the Los Angeles 12th District.
Yes.
I got that right.
Yeah, you got it right this time. You got it right, man.
Yes,
I know that he was practicing
right,
10
got the
times.
title right, you got everything.
Thank God.
Yeah.
So, Councilman, we got to talk about homelessness. You know, when we think about Los Angeles, the first thing that comes to our mind is homelessness. Did the number jump up to 70,000 in the county-wide, and city it jumped to 40,000? Is that number correct?
No, the number citywide is about 40,000.
40,000.
I don't know if the number jumped up that much in the county. I think that we are definitely making a dent in homelessness. I think that some of the programs that we've enacted, some of the housing that we've built, but we also, there are different things that unfortunately it's very frustrating. Again, talking about some of the courts that are involved, is that City of LA, we are the big, part of the LA County. And so we're the ones that, activists tend to sue. Mm-hmm. And so it's been very frustrating in getting the 87 other cities sometimes to be doing the same things that the courts are telling us that we have to do. But more so, we have to be able to understand that what we're dealing with on the city streets is not just, people who, live paycheck to paycheck. Are those people? Yes. And we should be doing everything that we can right away to get those people housed before they spend time on the streets, right? But we're dealing with a big drug addiction issue. We're dealing with a mental health issue right now that if we don't start taking a look at how we approach this. I think years ago when the big institutions were closed down, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, things like that, it seemed inhumane. At the time, some of the practices of them were very inhumane. Mm-hmm. I think now we have a different approach. And I think we have to look at some of the different federal laws. I think we have to look at some of the conservatorship laws up in the state level of how we help people who may not be in a position to help themselves. To me, mental health is health. Okay. So if you have someone having a heart attack on the street, we're going to stop and we're going to try to help that person having that heart attack. Mm-hmm. Well, why aren't we doing the same for the mental health issues, right? It's not okay that we have people dying on our streets. It's just a common thing that we've somehow come to accept as a city, that there are going to be people dying on our city sidewalks. Mm-hmm. That's not okay. So unfortunately, right now, the only tool I have in my tool belt is repetition, going back and back and back until they accept services that they didn't accept the day before. We need to take a look at how we deal with conservatorship. We have to take a look at some of the federal laws that limit the size of mental institutions. We need more, beds, and we need to be able to understand what type of problem. If we keep telling ourselves, "Oh, this is just unfortunately, it's just paycheck." Look, that may have been the case for some of these people. But I have two very good friends who are part of this organization called it was Hope of the Valley. Now they're Hope the Mission. They spend, I think, 100 hours out on the city streets.
Wow.
These are people who knew that on Friday night, they would be back in their own bed, right? So it wasn't a sense of like, how am I going to get out of this? They knew on Friday night, their journey ended and they could go back to their homes. After 100 hours on city streets, they'll be the first ones to tell you that some of their cognitive skills, were lost, and some of the different things. It is not an easy thing, obviously, and we have to be able to treat this like an emergency. We have to be able to address those issues, and we can't just simply say, well, until everyone gets their own, permanent supportive housing unit, we're not going to do anything. It's permanent supportive housing or nothing. Like congregate living shelters, we have activists saying that congregate living shelters, are not okay. Well, ask the people who are no longer, under this rain that we've been having, who have a roof over their head, who have 3 meals a day, because they'll argue like, well, stuff gets stolen and fights happen. Like, and my answer is always, so it's better on the streets. Like,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that I think that 6 or 7 years ago, when you talk about some of these congregate shelters within communities, the communities would have said, no way, there's no way. But now with the problem, the way it grows, in Council District 12, where I had 0 beds, by the end of this year, I think I'm on track to have close to 400 to 500 beds. Mm-hmm. The communities are saying that they understand that housing is part of the solution. We're not going to build our way out of this problem. We're not going to keep building more and more supportive housing and catch up. It's just not going to happen. So we have to take a look at a different model. And some of the people in city council need to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we've been approaching this, a wrong way.
You mentioned congregate housing. From my understanding, I'm not sure if what the percentage is, but from my understanding that a significant amount of homeless people are not willing to go into those congregate housings or those shelters, as you mentioned, because they might have a curfew or something. But you mentioned something else. You mentioned that things get stolen over there, and they would just rather be on the streets. And a lot of these homeless folks, they tend to be suffering from mental disease as well as drug addiction. I mean, that's a big part of the problem. Maybe
it is.
They don't want to be helped. Some of them.
Yeah, it's I'll get shouted down every single time I say this in city council, but some people are making the choice to stay on the streets.
Mm-hmm. They like it that way.
It's not. I'll have colleagues that have said, there's no way, John. There's nobody that is making that choice. Really. Every district sees it every single day. We have outreach workers going out trying to offer services to people. And there are, I'm not saying all of them, but there are some that are making the choice. And because it used to be that if they were, openly doing drugs or something, that maybe they are faced with in court, a drug court, like 120 days in jail or drug rehabilitation. Now, drug rehabilitation wasn't 100%, but I think people would choose the drug rehabilitation, right? They're not going to get, their drug addiction treated in the jail system. So they do that thinking, maybe they even thought, I can beat it. Don't worry, I can, beat this. But it did help some people. We've heard stories over and over how, if this didn't happen, if this didn't happen, this intervention in my life didn't happen, I would not be here today. We've heard that story throughout our lives. Well, right now, that intervention is not there anymore. Mm-hmm. And we're just saying, it's okay. Sleep wherever you want, steal as much as you want, do as much drugs as you want. I don't see.
Here, we'll build a place for you and give you syringes to do it.
We're not trying to, if you want to give out, clean syringes and stuff like that, it has to be a part of a process of trying to help them
rehabilitate,
get them off of the drugs. Mm-hmm. It can't just be simply just, handing out needles or here's a safe space. We have to start, really trying to treat these issues. And we're unfortunately failing at that.
I remember the first time when you first ran for office, when you had a debate against Lorraine Lundquist, and you got a lot of applause because you mentioned that homelessness issue is drug issue. Let's be realistic about it. I think and probably you were the only candidate at that time talking about this issue.
Yeah, drug addiction is a huge part of the problem we have on our streets. Is it all of them? No, of course not. But you know what?
Isn't it majority of them though?
It's a good number of them. It's I wish
significant
you know what?
number.
It's a majority of them,
Here's the
man.
thing. I would love to know, and the reason I hesitate on saying that number because you'll have some people say, "Oh, it's 85% of people," and then you'll have other people say, "No, it's only 15% of the people." I have trouble getting numbers back from LASA, groups that we are spending millions of dollars funding, and getting reports back on when we give them an encampment to go to. Tell me, how many people accepted services? How many people did not accept services? How many people there did you identify that are dealing with drug addiction? We have people, outreach workers going every day. It got to the point where I just, through the budget, I just hired my own outreach workers. Yeah, separate to LASA.
I heard that LASA is a huge mess. That's what I heard.
Because I can't rely on them. I want people to get me back the information that I need to be able to responsibly legislate and to, really understand what are we looking at. And so now that we have those outreach workers, I'm hopeful that in this next year, I'm going to be able to come back and say, this is how my district, this is the makeup, this is what it looks like. And, I think that, I think CD12 is doing a good job at not only at supporting police officers and of course crime is up everywhere, but our citizens are, at our divisions, we have the most amount of citizen volunteers because they realize they have to be a part of the solution. So they're volunteering their times, and we've put in beds. We have a community that cares, but they also, we have to make sure that we are still enforcing certain things, certain laws, and we got to understand that as a city, tourism is a huge part of our economy.
Yeah, and with safety, public safety.
If we
everything.
become like other cities that you hear of, that people are like, no, why would I want to go there? I don't want to spend $550 night in a hotel when I can't walk out, and feel safe. Well, we cannot get that reputation, and right now, when the Board of Tourism is, doing some interviews and not getting positive things, we have to understand that's taken away from us. What happens? More jobs lost, more people living on the streets, and we can't have that. We have to stop that cycle. And so,
You mentioned a really important point. I think that was very significant. I haven't heard it mentioned very much, but you mentioned that you had your people spend about 100 hours on the streets, and you also mentioned that it's very important to get to them before they hit the streets, because the average homeless person, if they're on the streets, chances are that they've been homeless for years already. So homelessness usually starts by people trying to spend time with their family or during their, like sleep at their family or friends' homes. And then once that option runs out, then they're sleeping in their cars. And then once that option runs out, that's when they're on the street, or they're in the shelters. And then once that runs out, then they're on the streets. Yeah. So this is a process, a degrading process that keeps on going.
And that's why we, instead of looking at the highest acuity of how long have they been on the streets and things, we need to start taking a look at low acuity of getting people, if they are recently unhoused, that's sort of the people that if we can get them housing right away, they won't spiral down. But I want to correct you, because it wasn't my staff that did the 100 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There was a nonprofit.
Okay.
We're going that one. I don't want anybody giving you said that. Yeah.
Well, I just said your people, so
the
people that you're working with.
Credit. Yeah. But didn't the homeless people get especially hurt during the storm weather?
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, that
I
was.
can't.
Must have been tough.
It was really tough, and I think. In situations like that, you did see an increase in numbers of people coming, looking for shelters. Because that, we sit here and we complain about, how long this has lasted. We've realized there are human beings living on our streets that are dealing with these issues. when did it be okay as a society that we just say, well, not until we get them their own unit, we're just not going to, we're not, that's not.
I'm just amazed that Skid Row still exists, and that there's so much drugs and all kinds of stuff. I mean, apparently it's like a drug market. You could just go there. Anybody could go there and just get all these drugs over there.
There are Koreans in Skid Row too, and you were talking about tourism. Olympics coming soon. When is it? 2028.
Yeah,
right. So in my previous company, I was planning to hire an intern, and she flew from Korea, and she saw the homeless scene here. Mm-hmm. She left the next week. So this is the current state of Los Angeles right now.
Well, it's a city that I grew up in, city that I love very much, city I believe in, and I think that we can turn things around. We just have to be able to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we've been doing things wrong. We just need to look in the mirror and say, maybe the way we've been approaching this is not working. And is it okay to look a different way? And, that's all I'm asking.
Who agrees with you in the city council currently? Among the 15 members, McCusker agrees with you a lot?
On the record or off the record?
No, I want to know, at least
different,
kind of, as a
different issues.
constituent.
I don't know, like
in this, like homelessness or safety,
I think
who see eye to eye with you.
I think
the number.
A really strong partner that I'm going to have over the next, my time in office. Councilmember Tracy Park has been a really welcome voice.
Oh, okay.
And I think a welcome voice for her district. She represents the Venice, community in that area where obviously we know the problems that they've been dealing with. So she's already been a great partner, and I really appreciate the thought that she puts in before we have to push that yes or no button. And I've been very impressed with her so far.
Great. Let's change the subject and talk about something
a little
bit lighter. I think it's been heavy, the crime and homelessness. So, Councilman, I know that you're a huge movie fan, movie and TV drama fan.
John Wick 4, have you seen that?
No, I haven't yet.
I mean, because when you talk about like Star Wars or Game of Thrones, he knows that itty bitty, knowledge of it.
I'm a 70s kid, so Star Wars came out when I was 7, so it was like defined good and evil. For me. So
but I know that you weren't that gung ho about the prequels and the sequels too, right?
Yeah,
the sequel series.
Oh, you're a purist.
I'm kind of
you're
purist.
Like me.
Yeah,
I'm a purist too.
Kind of purist. Yeah.
So what kind of and you said that the city hall people, the deputies, talk a lot about these. They would watch dramas on the weekend and talk about it on Monday.
No, I think with that, my staff, when Game of Thrones was a show on, I think that was you weren't allowed to have any cooler talk, and if you didn't see the episode, people would shun you. They'd be like,
man. So it's a requirement.
You want to be spoiled. Well, then, you need to. You can't be a part of this. But
didn't Game of Thrones didn't it have so many different elements of politics?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was like the most political show.
Is that why you watched it? Because you were a politician and you learned politics from it?
But you learn a lot. You're like, oh, wow, this is how people really are.
It just was a really, I think it, obviously captured the nation, and it was such a, just a fun and interesting show. But, when the first season, I don't care if you haven't seen it yet, then I'm sorry that I'm going to spoil. But when certain stars of the show, get offed every now and then, like you're like, oh, how did that happen? That can't be. That guy's the star of the show. What? You can't kill that guy.
That's right. That's right.
You're like, wait a second, what's going on here? So I think from that moment, it really caught you. Like, no one was safe. This is I how many times during the series you ended it, you were like, what? They just killed off who? Like what? Like how is that possible? They're such a major part of this story. And so, that was interesting.
You haven't seen it?
No, I watched because Councilman Lee has always been, bugging me. I can't believe that you never watched it. So I watched it all the way up to season 5.
Okay,
but
you did?
Yeah, but so
no,
I don't know because I expected something. The change, the twist and turns. Probably if I would not have known in advance, then it would have been more of a shock. I always expected it. So
my new show.
Yeah, what is it?
Secession.
I was about to ask.
Secession.
Is it good?
Secession.
Secession. Yeah.
Do you want HBO?
Okay, we're gonna check out Secession.
It is the first season, like any TV show. It's character development.
It takes
getting
time
to know different people.
I'm gonna write this.
But I promise you guys, we're in season 4 now, and it's one of those at every, at the end of every episode, I'm looking at my wife going, "Oh my god!" It's so good. And one of the favorite thing is that I always have to look up a word. There's some word that they use during the episode that I will be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Even you don't know these words.
They plug in these kind of a little bit.
Their education is
highbrow
so high.
words.
It's dealing with not just the rich, but the uber rich.
Okay.
I think the last word. The last episode was
word of the day, please, for our audience. What was that?
Stakhanovite. I think I'm pronouncing it right.
Stakhanovite. What does it mean?
Yeah, Stakhanovite.
What does it mean?
So it's a he was judging these workers who were working in a newsroom of oh look, he sent one email, a bunch of Stakhanovites here, and I was like, what is that word? So it's like a Russian worker under communism who overproduced what their expected output were, and they were rewarded for that.
This is a total sarcastic remark.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It was a sarcastic remark.
We should tell
but
Michael
I was just
about this.
what is that word? I can't, I've never heard that word. Yeah.
Succession has been winning a lot of awards, Emmy awards, and actually, Squid Game director, I forgot his name, but I got a chance to interview him a little bit, and he said that that's one of his best shows too. So it might be something.
It's so good. So,
all right, okay.
Trust me.
Well, so you talk on Mondays, every Monday, with the city council with 지은 보좌관 is here. You should mention about how much of a hard work she does.
Well, yes, absolutely. Gian is one of the, one member of the amazing staff that I have. I couldn't do this job without my amazing staff.
I think it'd be great to have her on the show next and then talk about you.
Exactly. Yes, I agree. Okay, and I won't be here.
Give me the truth.
And she can tell you the truth about me.
Hey, that's awesome. We're almost out of time, but I saved a couple minutes. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about, your future plans? I know you're going for another election, a re-election as well.
Right? Yeah.
Next year, that's coming up for you, and also all the plans that you have in your role as a councilman.
So, you know what? Like I said, as of right now, there's no opponent right now, but we will see.
You like it that way, no opponent,
absolutely.
right?
I mean, look,
you got it. This isn't a re-election.
I think that the community knows us. I think that the city of Los Angeles knows us. I think the people who will support a candidate like me, they've seen what I've done. They've seen the record that I held in city council. But most importantly, the residents of CD12, they know I'm there. They know that I care deeply about this district. They know that the positions I take always have their interests in mind. And so, if we run up unopposed, great. And if there's someone that is, runs against us, we will put on a campaign next year. But I'm very confident that we'll be sitting here in that seat for another 4 years, and we're going to be able to address some of the issues that are important to us. And we've covered pretty much the things that are important to me. We're going to cover, about what do we do about the declining numbers of our, police force. That is something that we have to, before it becomes too late, we have to start tackling that issue now. And so
I don't want it to drop under 9,000.
Yeah,
9,100 is crazy.
Yeah, neither
That's
do
crazy.
I. For the size of the city of Los Angeles,
4 million. They're covering 4 million, right?
Yeah.
This 9,100 people. They're covering 4 million. Can you believe that?
And so it's a lot of different things that we need to look at. But that is quality of life issues are what's most important for me.
Well, John, thank you, or actually, Councilman. I'm so sorry. We got so friendly.
John. I knew him longer, and I show respect, but you're like, he's just John to me.
Call me son. Actually, it's okay.
So, Councilman, when is it? The election? March? When?
March 2024.
March 2nd, March 3rd.
March.
You don't know the date? You don't know the date. You don't care about the date. He's gonna win anyway,
He's
right?
like,
it's 11 months
I don't
away.
care. I'm gonna
I
win
know it's in
anyway.
March. Say, if anyone does come
how
on.
arrogant, I don't care what date it is. I'm
Yeah, I
just-
know it's in March, 11 months from now, but I don't know
this
the
is a
exact
confident
date, so
councilman.
like that.
Yeah, I can see how confident you are.
John, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
All right,
being
we'll
here.
see you. We'll see you again real soon.
I hope so.
hopefully.
I hope
All right.
so.
Yeah. Did you enjoy yourself today?
Of course.
Okay.
I always like hanging out with you. So.
All right, that was our Los Angeles County, or Los Angeles City 12th District Councilman John Lee joining us for today on 문화충격 or Culture Shock. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.